welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is episode 222. My name's Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This week I talk with Gabriel, a 45-year-old marketing professional from western Montana. Gabriel shares his lifelong experience with misophonia that started around age 5 or 6, primarily triggered by eating sounds from those closest to him, of course, his parents, and later his wife and kids. We talk about growing up with a child psychologist father who tried to help through exposure therapy, the decades of shame and secrecy that kept him silent about his condition, and the profound relief of discovering just a few years ago that he wasn't alone. Gabriel opens up about the exhausting work of hiding his reactions, the toll it takes on family relationships, and why he's still struggling to overcome the deep shame despite having a supportive wife and therapist. We also discuss his introverted nature, his hesitation about attending the Misophonia convention, and why coming on the podcast represents a significant step towards owning up to something he's kept hidden for 40 years. It's a really raw, honest conversation that hit me hard about isolation, shame, and the difficult journey towards self-acceptance. After the show, let me know what you think. You can reach out to me by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast. By the way, please do head over, leave a quick rating wherever you listen to the show. It really helps drive us up in the algorithms. If you want to come on the show, please just go to misophoniapodcast.com and click the Be a Guest link. All right, now here's my conversation with Gabriel. Gabriel, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Do you want to tell us a little bit of where you're located, a bit about what you do?
Yeah, I live in western Montana, a city of about 75,000 people. I'm 45 years old and I work in marketing. I actually started a marketing company when I was pretty young, and now my wife runs it, and I've kind of taken a step back recently from it. I found it really interesting on your podcast how many people seem to have misophonia and have some sort of technical or engineering background. Yeah. I'm more kind of on the technical and coding side myself. I'm not quite a developer and an engineer, but I do seem to fit that profile, which I just find to be so strange. I should also say I recently discovered your podcast, and I've been binging it for the last month or so. And I wanted to start with the first episode and work my way forward. And so I'm still on 2020. People are still talking about the COVID lockdown, and it's been really interesting. My background with misophonia started, I don't know exactly when. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. And like so many of your guests have said, they remember their father triggering them, and that was true for me as well. My dad is a retired child psychologist, and so it's been kind of an interesting. Interesting upbringing, because I come from a family that is very loving and very supportive, and never made fun of me for this issue, and really wanted to help. But especially back then in the 80s, not much was known about this. And my experience was that nothing was known about this. So my dad tried to help me in a number of ways, none of which worked. One way that he tried to help was through kind of his version of exposure therapy.
Yeah.
And I remember that he, so I'd be at the dinner table, and just a small 4-person dinner table kind of sandwiched between my parents, and being triggered every single night and really, really suffering. And they wanted to help me. And so my dad recorded himself eating some really crunchy food. Back then he was always eating grape nuts for cereal, for breakfast.
Yeah.
kind of the worst possible
Right.
thing somebody could eat around me. So he recorded himself eating that on a cassette tape, and he called it Crunch. And he wasn't trying to make fun of me or make light of the situation, but it was a ridiculous, funny thing to do, right? We all
Yeah.
thought it was kind of funny. And I remember he sat me down at the table and played that over the stereo, and I don't remember it being particularly bothersome. For me, a recording is much different than
Yeah.
actually experiencing something live.
Yeah.
And I remember just the sheer ridiculousness of it was sort of funny, and it was bothering me a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But my dad, meanwhile, I learned later as an adult that this was one of his biggest parenting regrets. That that he saw that as a huge parenting failure, and really really regrets it. And I kind of tried to tell him, Dad, that really was not that significant of a deal for me at the time, but something that he really held with him.
The regret of
Yeah,
doing the exposure therapy, or
yeah.
not being able to figure out misophonia, or that it came up. Just kind of curiosity.
The exposure
Yeah. Yeah.
therapy,
Yeah.
trying to do that. Uh, I'm 45 years old now. I've lived with this for so long, and I have very few coping mechanisms. I had none back then. It was, torture. And uh, I think that that in retrospect, those experiences of just sitting at the dinner table night after night after night and just not having any outlets or relief from it was probably in some way traumatizing to me, that has affected kind of how I deal with things today. But one of the things that I experienced that I haven't heard many of your guests so far talk about, and again, I'm only up to the 2020
Mm-hmm.
season, but I don't hear them talk a whole lot about shame. So many of your guests have found ways to be upfront and open about misophonia, and tell people that they have this issue, and people seem to be responsive to that and helpful. I am horribly, horribly ashamed of my misophonia. I don't want anyone to know about it. I want it to go away. I want to suppress it. I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. One of the catalysts for me coming on your podcast here is to maybe make a dent in that issue, and maybe take a step towards kind of owning it and being a little more open. But I think back about, it's my wife, and I'll talk more about her, but she and my therapist have both recommended that, this is not something you need to be ashamed of. You don't need to hide it. It's part of who you are. There's not something wrong with you. But I just can't overcome that. I do think there's something wrong with me. I'm not here to judge anyone else with misophonia, only myself,
Mm-hmm.
but geez, I think there's something very, very wrong with me, and I hate it, and I desperately want it to go away. It's something that, as your listeners know, it's something that is just awful to live with and debilitating. And growing up, I just assumed that this would be something I'd grow out of. Like I'm a
Yeah.
kid, and I don't see any other adults. I don't see any adults dealing with anything like this or being strange. This is going to go away, and of course it didn't. I listened to a lot of your guests talk about how they really struggled in college and in lectures and classrooms, or even in school in general. My triggers are primarily eating and chewing sounds, and the people that bother me are the ones that I know the best. So a stranger, or even somebody that I know casually, they're really not going to be able to trigger me. They can do all of the same things that my loved ones will do, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Never, or sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
I struggle, or I hesitate to say never.
Yeah.
But I
I think
can't
about that
think of
too,
a
because
time.
sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like context has to do with it. If I feel trapped, then it does. But if it's like I don't know if it's passing and I happen to be in a good mood, low stress, then I can deal with it. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's an interesting thing that I like to ask people about.
Yeah,
So
I recognize things that are obnoxious, like, geez, that
right.
stranger is, doing something with their mouth that they really shouldn't do, maybe, or that I certainly think that they shouldn't do. But it doesn't make me go nuts. A
Yeah.
trigger for me, a simple, the split second that somebody that's emotionally close to me, my parents, my wife, even my kids,
Yep. Yep.
when they bite into that chip, it feels like my blood thickens, my muscles constrict. I feel almost like a spasm in my lower back,
Hmm.
and it's awful, and I don't feel like I'm like I've come a long way since I'm a kid. I can hide
Hmm.
things a little bit better.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, for me, um, I think it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago that my therapist said, "Yeah, I'm seeing somebody else that has these same sort of triggers
Yeah.
as you. And
Yeah.
did you know about misophonia?" And it's like my jaw dropped on the floor, because I have gone through my life certain that I'm the only one in the world that has this super strange issue, and all alone. I felt like I'd been an alien on planet Earth, all
Hmm.
by myself, and then suddenly, with the snap of a finger, I find out that there are other people in this world, other aliens, I guess,
Yep.
that have these same issues, and I can't even describe what that felt like. I really was
Yeah.
convinced it's me and nobody else. When I learned that, I, of course, went to the web and started searching, and I found the Misophonia subreddit. And my first thought was, if I'm not the only one, then there's probably some solutions out there.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
and the subreddit, I eventually had to get off of it, because it there's a lot of people complaining, and talking about a trigger that really set them off, and they're trying to vent, and I totally get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to find a solution, and so I've seen things about earplugs,
Hmm.
and in fact, during one of your episodes, somebody recommended a specific type of earphone, or earplug called earpiece. Is that what it's
Oh,
called?
okay. Yeah. 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 Right. Those pipes. I think Sam. Yeah. She. Right. Mentioned earpiece, and I think I have some somewhere here. Yeah. There's earpiece. There's loops. Other ones,
Yeah,
and I feel like they're all kind of similar. I mean, there's not much you can do with a piece of plastic that you put into your
yeah.
ears. Not a variation. Not a whole bunch of variation, but some of them are interesting. I think earpiece works this way where there's a couple different levels of blockage just depending on how I don't know how you press it, or change the shape of it or something. So
Yeah.
but again, I mean, it masks the sound, and sometimes I've noticed yeah, sorry, this is just me talking, but sometimes I've noticed that it will, depending on the trigger, it will mask other sounds, but then you kind of latch on to the trigger more because you're almost like listening for it if you know
Listening
it's going
for
to
it.
be there. So I don't know, I find it kind of inconsistent in that way, and so I just don't use them. I mean, if I'm going to put something in my ear, I'd rather put like you know these AirPod Pros and put some music on top, you know. So
Yeah, I ordered after that episode. I got on Amazon and I ordered them just because I thought it can't hurt. I might as well try it. They
yeah,
arrived the other day, and I haven't had really a chance to try them out at all. I don't want to wear earplugs.
right,
I don't want to
yeah,
wear anything.
yeah,
I want to be normal in every sense of the word. Um, the the idea of somebody noticing those, family members that know I have misophonia, anybody, I don't want them to know about it. I also, I'm skeptical that just sort of reducing the noise at all would
yeah,
help anyway. But gosh, at this point, I'm willing to try anything.
right,
It, I heard about some of the research grants that are being studied, some of the work that Dr. Marsha Johnson was
Yeah,
at
but
Oregon.
she's an audiologist. She's not actually doing research
Right.
herself.
But
But
trying to treat it. Yeah.
yeah,
I've looked into these, and it's so frustrating that it doesn't seem like that there've been any advancements. I think about somebody that has a pacemaker, right? If their heart rhythm is abnormal, it gives them a little shock, and things are back to normal.
right.
I need that for my brain. I need something.
That's an interesting
I'm
analogy. Yeah.
so
Yeah,
frustrated.
the research is very much still at a kind of characterize this level. Like,
Yeah,
what is this? What are the
right.
mechanisms? There are some cognitive methods to kind of, help refocus yourself. There are some trauma informed therapies as well, if that happens to be one of the reasons why it developed. But yeah, there isn't like a pacemaker that can kind of
Right.
like intercept the signal before it causes havoc, before it
Right.
triggers the fight or flight.
If I had something in my brain that was giving me a shock anytime I had a weird thought, I'd be being shocked constantly.
Right.
Probably not
Oh
a good
yeah,
idea.
yeah. Right. Yeah. No, but yeah, you're kind of like path to kind of like it's interesting that you just found out about it recently, but your path to kind of like, um, well, your path after you found out what it was is very similar to a lot of people. You'll definitely find that as you're listening to the podcast episodes, and shame will come. Shame does come up. So
It
keep
does.
listening. The shame and guilt, we mentioned that a lot. Like the guilt of like everything that our glares or outbursts cause people. Um, just compounds the issue. It just kind of like I feel like it gets in the way of many of us kind of like dealing with it, or even looking for an answer. Like you said, a lot of us feel like we're freaks, and this. I mean, it's our own thing, and so a lot of us don't even Google for something like this until much later, in life.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why I didn't think to research it, at all on Google before my therapist brought it up. I don't know. It's sort of like just sort of. It's always been part of me, and it just didn't
mm,
occur to me to go. I just assumed I'm the only one. I've never ever heard of anybody that has this.
right,
What's the point of going and looking at Google? Maybe it seems unreasonable
right,
in retrospect, but yeah. My so like so many of your other guests, it's caused problems throughout my life, especially being unwilling to tell people about it. I remember a girlfriend in college. I picked her up from the airport, and we had an hour or two drive
oh,
back to school, and she was chewing gum, and I don't think I've come much further now than I was back then. I couldn't say. I just held it in, and
hmm,
she could tell that I was boiling. And what's the matter? Nothing.
yeah,
What's going? Are you sure everything's okay? It's fine. And meanwhile, I'm gripping the steering wheel. I'm
yep,
boiling, right, and it's definitely caused problems. My wife is the first, really, and only person other than my therapist that I have told about it and talked about it with.
I'm number
Um,
three.
you really are. You really are number three. And I told her about it before we got married, while we were still dating.
Mm,
I can't imagine someone being more supportive and more compassionate than she is. I can confidently say, if the situation was reversed, I wouldn't be as supportive with this
mm,
weird thing as she is for me. What I don't like to talk about it with her. She always wants to try to normalize it, and have it be something that's just part of who you are. But let's own it. Let's not hide it. I'm not there. I don't know if I'll ever be there. Uh, but she's amazing. And I'm really lucky. I glare, and I can't control it. And I was just blown away listening to your podcast that you coined this term, or at least you introduced it to me, the misophonia glare. Like, how crazy is that?
yep,
That even down to my the look on my face is other people are doing it. But giving her that glare for an instant is really upsetting for her, and I understand why, and that's really hard to reconcile. And I feel terrible about it. My kids didn't always trigger me,
Yep.
and now they do. And
Around what age
it's
are they?
really
Just out of curiosity.
8, 10, and 12.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a
Um,
common. It's not unheard of that when they're tiny and cute, it's fine, and then as they get older,
and you have kids
yeah,
yourself?
yeah. 13
You don't
and
talk.
almost 5. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah. Giving them that glare is really confusing to them and upsetting. And my wife would really like to draw the line there. But that still happens. Um, yeah. I told you my dad is a retired
Yeah.
child psychologist.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
came to me a few years ago before he retired, and he said, "Hey, I'm advising these graduate students, and one of them is working with a kid who has sound sensitivity. I don't know if he called it misophonia at the time, but it was clear. And he said, uh, this is something that you used to struggle with, and I wanted to see if you had any thoughts or recommendations that I could share with this this graduate student in psychology." And I lost it. I knew he was coming to talk to me about this.
Oh.
He gave me a heads up.
Yeah.
I started crying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I said, "Dad, this never went away. I struggle with this all day, every day." And he was really compassionate and understanding, and he said he didn't know that I still struggle with it, and that I must do a really
Mm-hmm.
effective job of hiding it. And he kind of tried to. I could tell, in the times that I saw him after that he'd kind of try to give me a little space when he was eating, or maybe not eat immediately. But
Mm-hmm.
people forget, and
Right.
especially an older parent, he forgot long ago. I did burst out at one point, and I said, "Why don't we talk when you're done eating?" When he was over once, and I
Yeah.
could see on his face, he kind of backed away and said, "I'm sorry, I forgot." Um, but I try to control. I don't want him to know. I don't want anybody to know. I was at a hotel with my parents, or visiting them in their hotel room on a trip recently, and they were going to have a lunch. And so like so many other people, I got an excuse. Okay, well, I'm actually gonna go for a walk. I'll be back in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said, "Okay, no problem. I'll send you a text when we're done eating." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. She saw right through me. She knew exactly why I was leaving,
Mm.
and why I was leaving, and what was going on. And it was like I'd had the wind knocked out of me for a split second. In fact, I was so distraught that I had been quote unquote caught, that
Yeah.
I went for a long walk, and I searched Apple Podcasts for misophonia and listened to your first podcast,
Wow.
and was just kind of shaking my head in disbelief that people were talking about such
Mm-hmm.
similar, kind of similar lives to mine.
Wow. That gives me the shivers, just because one of my, I don't know, feel like define or strongest memories of as, and not even as a child, as I was in college, was like just to look at my parents' face after I kind of like backed away in a similar situation like that. I'm sure it was like a meal, and that just has stuck with me forever. And it's one of the reasons why I want to share more stories. So I feel like it's kind of come full circle with your story here. So very kind of moving to hear that.
Yeah, a big thing with me and my shame is that I don't want the world to accommodate me. Right. My family, my wife, and to some degree my kids are already walking on eggshells all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The eggshells term is something that my wife has talked about. And if I were to start sharing this with the world, so first of all, it's such an odd, unusual thing. Um, Certainly not something that people encounter very frequently in a city of 75,000 ish people here. Um, I don't want to be that super weird guy. What's wrong with them? I've never heard of this. Never seen anybody else deal with this. Uh, I don't want people to accommodate me in that way. Um, and even if they did, as soon as I've kind of outed myself and said, "Hey, this is something that really bothers me. Could you not chew gum around me, or do anything with your mouth? In fact, could you just hold your breath when you're around me?"
Yeah, yeah,
As soon as they forget, which is probably going to happen, in 7 minutes, then then that rage
yeah.
would come out. I'm sure. I told you, and you're still doing it. How is this even possible, right? Or it's been a week, and now I see you again, and do I really have to out myself again?
Right,
I
right.
think it would
It's
just make me
exhausting.
so angry. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I just want to go away. I just want it to go away. I can't believe that so many of us
Yeah.
are living with this. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Sometimes I think about what it would be like not to have it, and just the amount we'd have our brain back, our how much more productive, or just kind of like our nervous system. I mean, I think to your point about that muscle spasm, I think there are physical manifestations, whether it's immediate or long term, to kind of glaring at people so much, so much all day. I think you would, yeah, have difference. It make a huge difference long, far beyond just the anxiety. We should have a little society. Somebody emailed me after listening to the podcast once and saying, "Hey, can I help buy a bunch of real estate and we'll build houses?" And
Speaking of meeting or being around other people with
mm,
misophonia, and this is the closest here, you and I talking
yeah,
about it,
yeah,
that I've ever come. And I learned about through your podcast. I learned about this annual convention,
yeah,
and I have mixed feelings about it. So I'm really, really interested. Really interested. I'm worried that it would be, me and three other people, but it sounds like it's much bigger than that. Um,
yeah. I can tell you about it just really briefly. I'm not
yeah,
affiliated with it, but there's one coming up. The next one is coming up in October 23rd, and it's going to be in Dallas.
I saw that.
And yeah, there's usually a couple hundred people show up from mostly around the country. It's put on by Marsha Johnson and her Misophonia convention. Yeah, so it's interesting. They do a lot of work for breakfast, for example, to only buy, and even lunch, to only get food that is soft and not, crunchy. So there's nothing crunchy. All the pens are non-clicking pens. There's a lot of space in the hotel to kind of move around if you're getting triggered. They always pick. This is kind of interesting. They always pick the embassy suite hotels because there's two doors. There's the front door, and then there's another door to the bedroom. So because they're all suites, so you have extra protection from the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
hotel, so it's extra quiet. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, and I've told them this. The talks are some of them are really good. Some of them are I could definitely do without, and I usually do without most of the um, talks, because it's those conversations with people like you or other people that are kind of the most beneficial. You meet somebody for the first time and you feel like you have walked in their shoes for their entire lives, which is a surreal experience. And for the first time, you're kind of looking out, watching your eating sounds and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting uh, dynamic there as well. So they really try to keep things quiet. There's always something. There's always an HVAC issue at some point, or a door that is not slams too hard sometimes. But I don't know. But overall, I mean, I have a good time, and I think they're trying to do more of the community, the more social events now, which I think are the most valuable parts of that particular event.
So do you go every year?
I've gone to a few. I've gone to, and then when it was during COVID, I was doing it online. But I just went last year. Yeah, last year to well, gosh, I don't even remember where it was now. But oh, Atlanta. Yeah, I went there, and Atlanta's gonna be Dallas. Yeah, I'll probably go. Yeah, this year as well. If I can afford it. It's not that it's not that much, but yeah, it's they're constantly trying to improve it. I think if they focus more on the social stuff, to kind of like hang out with other people, do practical workshops, to look for, what's helping you, and it could be what helps you might not be for somebody else. So I think there's going to be a bunch more workshops to kind of help people find new solutions that they may have not have thought of. Yeah, it's fun and you meet friends that you'll be in touch with, you know, outside of it, and you just have people on your speed dial that you can kind of like, say, oh, you'll get this, and then you get into your story.
I'm really, really intrigued, and
Yeah,
I told my wife about it, and she, immediately said she said we should go.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of
and
couples go and families. Hmm.
I think I have a couple hesitations. One is, outing myself. Um, but the probably the bigger one is, uh, I have heard on your podcast episodes that some of the most valuable experiences at that happen in the hallways, just at social events and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not an extrovert. My wife
Oh
is.
yeah.
She'd jump in there and love to talk to
Right.
everybody. Um, I'm pretty introverted. At work, I have had opportunities to do kind of networking events, which is nothing to do with misophonia, but just for me, but just kind of not my jam. Walking up to people, introducing myself, and then trying to find things to talk about. I am more the kind of person that would want to stand at the back of a group of people that are already doing that, and you know what I mean.
Well, to be most people there are most people at this convention are that they were, this misophonia either made them introverted and awkward, or they just naturally were. I mean, not everybody is, but it's very common that you'll go there, a couple will go there, the spouse is super extroverted, and then the misophonia is not. And so I think, yeah, you guys actually fit right in.
That's good to hear. I wonder if there's some kind of a commonality there with
Hmm.
misophonia and not being extroverted, being introverted. Although I've heard a number of your guests are seem
Yeah,
to be the opposite.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Highly functional misophones, in some way. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think misophonia precludes anybody from being extroverted, but I think you'll hear
Sure.
even those people, they reach a level of exhaustion. Like they can't. They're not going to do it 24/7. If they get triggered, there is there's a toll.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you talk about that before, about just how exhausting it is to be triggered and recover from that. And I'd never really thought about that sort of toll. And I don't know if I can. I'm unsure if
hmm.
that's holds true for me.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure. That's interesting. It could be true, and I just don't recognize it as exhaustion. But I certainly have noticed that if I am stressed or if I am tired, that I have much less capacity
Oh, absolutely.
to handle a trigger. But I listen very carefully to your guests when they talk about their coping mechanisms, because I want some.
Yeah.
I want a coping mechanism, and for me, gosh, it's avoidance or excuses. Okay, well, I'm going to go and do the dishes now, but we just started dinner. Well, there's dishes in the sink,
Right.
and I'm just going to be right over there. I'll still see you.
Or I'll
It's
mix
all,
drinks.
yeah,
So,
exactly. They're all excuses. My wife sees
yeah.
right through them. She allows it. Speaking of eating quickly, I wonder if anybody else can relate to this, but at that young age, when I was a little kid sitting at the dinner table every night, I learned to just inhale my food, wolf it down as
Yeah.
fast as possible, and be excused the second my parents would allow it. And I have not. I mean, I can slow down a little bit now, but boy, that's part of who I am. I eat very, very quickly. Um, Extreme example, my dog, I feed him and he eats so fast that he doesn't remember that he ate,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
when's dinner? I'm not quite that bad, but
Yeah.
but gosh, I want to get out of there. And that was an early coping mechanism that didn't help much.
Do you remember like what were your kind of you said you were on 5 or 6? What was kind of going on there? Was it just suddenly you just noticed it at the dinner table, or were you, did you have other stresses at home?
I don't remember a time before misophonia.
Mm-hmm.
And our family has not had any classic traumatic events that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather and my mother both had and have a fair amount of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and that's certainly something that I suffer from as well. But I certainly don't remember the first time I was triggered.
Mm-hmm.
When my dad was asking me if I had any advice, he didn't realize that I had misophonia. He said that he remembers that, I'd be triggered and I'd be really upset and I'd be this little kid, and that they'd try to comfort me. And he said that they couldn't even hold me because the breathing noises would bother me. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't, I certainly didn't remember that. But as a parent now, that's heartbreaking to think that might happen to anybody. And it's heartbreaking to think that was me. And, thinking about my own kids, I have 3 boys. My therapist and my wife have said, when we talk about shame, if you had, diabetes or a birthmark, or, would you be ashamed to talk about that or to let people know? And I said, no, I have allergies and plenty of other issues, and I'm not ashamed to talk about that. But holy cow, misophonia, I don't want anybody to know about it.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to see me suffering from it. I don't want anybody to see through my excuses. My therapist has said, well, what if your kids start to have misophonia? Are you going to want them to kind of keep that to themselves? Of course not. I want them to be supported. I want to talk to them about it. I think it'd be easier for me to talk to them about it if I found out that they had it. But geez, I do not want them to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
This.
I wonder what that is, whether it is just because it is so weird, or if, going back to, maybe not everybody's childhood, but going back to some level of fear or not wanting to disappoint or something like that, in many, because I hear that kind of, that kind of feeling that a lot of people have had when they were kids, is like there were some situations where they're probably the child, unfully formed brain was felt under threat and had to kind of like almost toughen up. I've had people who come and said they had really had to fend for themselves in some situations because things were so chaotic at home. So I don't know if that kind of plays into it and resonates with a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but
yeah, I mean, it's possible that I'm blocking something out, but
or maybe something was misinterpreted or something. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so. But my wife has said, I don't know what trauma you experienced as a kid that's made you so ashamed of this. And she uses that term, trauma. And I was sort of thinking of, well, first I felt defensive. My parents are so awful that they did something to traumatize me that made me super ashamed of my misophonia. Like, no, that didn't happen.
Like it, right?
But I also was kind of reserving that term trauma for something more, I don't know, obvious, like a soldier in battle, or
PTSD.
Right. And on one of your episodes, I say more recent episode, but this is from 2020 because as I'm going through them. There was two people on, a man and a woman that work at a addiction recovery center. And I was really relating to what the man was saying. he was talking about how he really hadn't discussed this with anybody before your podcast, and he was talking about sitting at the dinner table as a kid, and I started to think like, geez, is that my trauma? Every single night, being at that dinner table, being unable to leave. I know that at some point my parents would probably say, stop, like stop. You're being so disruptive here at the dinner table. Just stop it. Okay, just go. You're done. You can leave. I don't think many of my experiences were like that, and I don't remember them, but I'm sure that happened. And maybe that just the years and years of sitting at that dinner table did affect me in some kind of way. Back to the idea of maturing and this no longer being an issue, right? Yeah. You're a kid, you got some weird issue, you'll grow out of it. I always thought that. My dad has a cousin, right? So I don't know if that makes her my second cousin or great cousin, or I don't know, but I saw her and just a really nice person, and she said, I'm so funny. I remember I visited you guys when you were little kids, and one of the things I remember is that you just could not be around people that were eating. It was so funny, just so funny to be able to tell you that story now. And I didn't know what to say. I wasn't going to tell her, like, that's
me
I haven't changed.
Today. Yeah.
Right. That's me today. I never outgrew that. It's a thing. I just kind of nodded my head and smiled and felt worse.
Wow. So obviously, I mean, a lot of people were noticing from a young age for you.
Yeah, for sure. Because, as a kid, you don't have those coping mechanisms and not good at hiding things and or internalizing it. And I can do those things better now. It doesn't feel any better, but I can hide it better.
Yeah. Was your dad giving you any other kind of coping mechanisms for other than the exposure? Did he try other things for misophonia, or just kind of, I don't know, other getting through life, getting through childhood kind of situations?
I don't remember. We must have talked about it, or he must have tried to talk to me about it. I remember as a kid, for a short period of time, I did see a therapist.
Okay.
I was
for this or something else.
I think it was a number of things, but what I remember very, very vaguely was that I was super embarrassed to be going to a therapist after school. What if my friends find out? And angry about that. But I do remember maybe overhearing the therapist talk to my parents and said, I this would have been in the 80s or early 90s, that she looked in some kind of database, national database at the time, and this would have been pre-internet. I don't know what she was consulting, but that
Sears
there
catalog
was
or something.
probably right. That there was something that might have been similar. I remember she said that there was a girl in some city I'd never heard of that, had some noise sensitivities or something like that. And it stuck with me. But that was the only thing that I'd ever heard of that might be related. And I was, as far as I was concerned, it didn't count. It wasn't. That therapy. I don't remember anything else. I mean, parents desperately wanted to help me, just as any good parent would.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do.
Did your friends notice at school anything? Were you glaring at them? No. Okay.
No, because it didn't bother me. This was my parents. My brother sucked his thumb well into what was it, second grade, and there was a year when we shared a bedroom, and I'd be dragging my blankets out into the hallway, and and of course I could still hear it, and I'm trying to cover my ears, and I wake up and my ears are sore, and but just sort of friends and acquaintances, they can do all of the same things, and it really won't bother me. uh, luckily. And that makes me think that because I've heard a lot of your other
Yeah.
guests, I think I probably have a mild case of misophonia compared to
Hmm.
how bad it can be. And I guess in some way I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the number of people probably. I mean, I'm speaking out of any kind of research, but yeah, I wouldn't. For me, the severity is the feeling as opposed to how many people trigger you, kind of thing. Because I think it is for a lot of us, it is very much context based, who it is, um, and almost I feel like it's kind of even worse that way. Because it's this other dimension on top of it. If it was just everybody else being too loud, kind of thing, that's I don't want to say not as big of an issue, um, but that could be something else. Could be hyperacusis or something like that. But
Yeah.
if it's the fight or flight with certain sounds with certain people, that is definitely that's the textbook. Well, again, I don't want to say what a textbook definition is, but that's misophonia. And yeah, I
It's
don't think it's any
still,
less, you know, than other
misophonia
people.
is still not in the DSM, I
Oh,
assume.
it's not. It's not, right. There's a push to get it. There's a push to get it in there. There's a push to get it into there's a more international system as well, because I think the DSM is just gonna it might continue to disappoint, but yeah, it is not in the DSM yet.
It's too
So
bad. I think that my dad, as a child psychologist, could have, and maybe if it wasn't the DSM, there would have been more
mm,
understanding back then. It would have been nice to know that I wasn't the only one, that this is actually a thing that
yeah,
people know about, and maybe I could have had some more effective help.
yeah. Well, what do you do these days? I mean, you got the AirPods, you got the avoidance. Is that pretty much?
So I don't want people to see me with
Yeah,
earplugs or AirPods. So
right.
no, nothing in
Yeah,
my ears.
yeah,
It's avoidance.
yeah,
It's trying to get through it,
yep,
right? Just stiffening up and trying to not show it on my face as best I can, and then excuses. I'm
yep,
going to go for a walk,
yep,
just because I need to get some exercise here, and oh, nothing's wrong. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm
yeah,
gonna tackle those dishes and do some laundry, and
right. Yeah,
it's 7 p.m., but the garage needs to be painted, and this seems like perfect time to do it, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
silliness that people see through if they know me. You asked about if friends at school noticed. No, but I do. I have had some friends that, I think once I said to a friend, your nose is whistling every time you take a breath, and I didn't say it's driving me crazy. I
yeah.
wanted to just say, like, hey, that's pretty weird, don't you think? And I remember he was like, what do you want me to do? Hold my breath? Um,
And you said,
and
"Yeah, can you please?" Just kidding.
yeah, I wasn't going to push that.
No, right, right.
The whistling noses, though, trying to watch a movie sitting next to a friend that's doing that is
Yeah,
challenging, and I'm sure other people deal with that too.
right. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, I remember sniffling. Yeah, yeah, stuff that you hear in school. I think back and I remember. Yeah, I think I know what that was now. Um, well, yeah, no, super. So I mean, so yeah, so one thing that comes up on the podcast, I don't know if you've heard it a lot of it, is like you have kids. Like, how do you tell them about misophonia? Do you name it? Do you describe it? How does that work? Because a lot of us, and actually, we've had conversations at the convention in the hallways. Was many first of all, I don't like to think about it either. Even though I have a podcast, I usually actually whenever I get triggered, it usually catches me by surprise because I don't like to think about it, and I also don't like to shine a spotlight on it when I'm around like my kids or whatever because we don't know. Is it something that if you talk about a lot, it's going to be noticed more by other people and then they'll kind of pick it up? I'm curious. Have you thought about how to address it with your kids?
I haven't named it, and
Mm,
I haven't really sat down and had a conversation about it, but I have told them, maybe one on one. I don't even know if I've told it to all of them, but hey, sometimes sounds bother me, and that's why I
mm,
shot you a dirty look or asked if I could have some space.
Yep.
But I'd have an easier time talking to them about it than a stranger. Obviously, I'm listening to your podcast in my car on Apple CarPlay, and when I pick them up from school, it says Misophonia podcast, and I'm like, get that off the screen, trying to mute it and turn it off, and because I don't want them to see that word and say, hey, what's misophonia? They should know about it. They should hear about it from me. I get that. I'm ashamed. This is something that I can't control, and like I said, I feel like there's something very, very wrong with me, and that I should be able to manage this better and can't.
I think a lot of people are nodding along. Yeah, we don't really want to have it up there. And it's not because we don't want to. I think we've realized that we should talk about it, or it's something that we'll have to talk about at some point. We just don't like to think about it and don't want to. And we carry that guilt and shame. And if we mention it, all that will come pouring out. I feel like that's kind of like in the back of our minds, and it's just too much for us to handle. Because it's like once you do like what happened with your dad, it just kind of, it's a flood that we've kind of like held suppressed for so long. On top of the fact that we feel something's wrong with us, it's very much a problem inside of us, which I'm kind of having, I don't know, mixed feelings about. Is it? I mean, obviously there's something wrong with us, but was there? And obviously I want to get rid of it, but is there a lesson to be learned from it? Was it, especially for some of us, where I feel like we can trace it back to experiences? Is there something we can learn about ourselves, or a kind of a connection to the past that I don't know can I don't know. There's something about that reflecting on the past that can be beneficial. And maybe at one point it was your body trying to help you somehow, trying to warn you about something, or just kind of like make you connect maybe to people or I don't know, cry for help or something like that. Something that maybe you needed that was not being met, whatever it was. I don't know, just that idea kind of makes me, I don't know, feel better. And in some cases, I was just telling somebody, if I can intercept my feelings and kind of remind myself of that maybe it's part of, even though I don't want it, it's part of some holistic experience that kind of helps me lower the triggers a little bit. I don't know if any of that made sense, but as you listen to more of the episodes, I think you'll hear some more diverse points of view on what this is, what it could have been, how it kind of like relates to us on a deeper level.
I will continue listening. It's something that has, given me some relief in some way to just hear from other people. I'm still waiting for the episode where somebody says, this is the solution that'll work for everyone. And
you'll hear a few of those, and it doesn't all work for everybody, but yeah.
Well, I'm listening. So. I'm listening carefully. It's I mentioned I don't have diabetes, but that's plenty of people have diabetes. Everybody knows about diabetes. Something, your body's not managing your blood sugar properly. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I don't know why misophonia is so much different for me, but it is. I think if I had diabetes, I'd be happy to tell you and everybody else about it with no shame.
Well,
this different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And funny enough, I just found out I have type 2 diabetes, and I'm just about to jump into a meeting because I'm developing an app to help with chronic disease. So it's kind of interesting. And I'm about to pretty much talk about it for an hour. But misophonia, I'll do it for specific people on a podcast. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, please don't tell anyone else that I have misophonia.
Okay, I will not.
Let's just keep that one. Keep that one right here.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, well, and you know, people listen to podcasts and they like to be connected to people sometimes. So if you know if you're listening to episodes and you're like, hey, I really resonate with that person, and you will. There's dads that come on. There's all kinds of stuff. You know, feel free to reach out. People love to kind of connect, and you know that kind of like community helps. So
Great.
cool.
You know, I wanted to say that
Mm,
I'm certain that your podcast takes up a ton of time for you. You know, I've seen the scheduled slots that are available, and they're in the evenings and late at
right.
night. And uh, um, it's a really amazing thing that you're doing this for us, and it's therapeutic in some way for me, and I'm sure for other listeners, and it's just very
And
very
for me
generous
too.
and
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you get something out of it too. But it's very generous of you to create this for everybody and do this with your spare time. I really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for saying that. And yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing your story and letting me be number three. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are gonna benefit from this.
Number three, who I've told about. Number one, who I've spoken with another person that has misophonia. It's amazing. I want to give you a hug.
Yeah, one day maybe at the convention or I'll have maybe I'll be so triggered I'll drive out to Montana from Minnesota. Cool.
Well,
Well,
thank
thanks
you.
again for coming. All right. Thanks again, Gabriel. Yeah, man, leave a light on in Montana, and I might swing by for that hug. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website misophoniapodcast.com. It's even easier just to send a message on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast, and on Twitter it's Misophonia Show. Theme music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.